Hello, everyone, and welcome to Couples and Conversations. We are super excited that you have joined us today. If this is your first time joining our channel, please do us a favor, like, comment, and subscribe on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere that they play podcasts. You can find us. Last week we were trending, and I believe that we're going to do that again. This week, we are talking about something that everybody has been asking us to talk about for a while. And we titled this The Sex Talk. So grab a friend, bring them on in. Super excited. We have a great panel with you guys, and we're going to go into exactly what questions we're going to be asking. But let me just take a moment to introduce our panel. We have my wife, Jennifer James. We have Fowler Nation, Toylise and Michael. We have Dem Crawfords, Erica and Jonathan. We have our divorcees, Tammy and Lasonia. And then we have our couple, JJ and Kiera. We also have a special guest today. We have Renisha, who is the owner of Out of Mind Counseling Center. Super excited to have her join our panel. Excited to hear her perspective on today. All right. So again, this is entitled The Sex Talk. So we're going to keep it PG-13, but we're definitely going to bring the real, okay? So for the first question is, we're going to be discussing, how do you tell your mates that the sexual aspect of your relationship needs improvement? Okay, so we're going to start there, and then we're going to move on down the line. All right, and we're going to start this off with Tammy.
Okay, so how do you tell your mate that your sexual relationship needs improvement? I think the first thing that's important is communication. Communication is key when um, discussing anything in a relationship. However, when discussing sex, it's important that you be careful in your wording and careful in your approach. It's all about effective communication. When I say effective communication, I'm thinking verbal and nonverbal communication. So, the verbal communication, you want to be honest, specific, and open with your mate. You also want to make sure that you're not using any demeaning type phrases or belittling or making that partner feel inadequate. So I wouldn't go into it saying, our sex life sucks, or I need you to do this better, or anything of the sort. I need you to come in saying, baby, let's try this. Baby, I brought in a new book, because Lord knows when I got married, I lost my virginity to my husband. So I know nothing, okay? I didn't know anything. So he had to basically teach me, and I appreciate him teaching me. And he didn't teach me making me feel like I was less than. So I think effective communication is key. However, you also need to tap into that nonverbal communication. Initiate. Today I was talking to one of my friends about the topic, and she shared with me that she wanted something different in her relationship, and she was just frustrated this particular day. So her mate asked her, "What's wrong with you?" And she just simply took his hand and put it on her vagina. That's good nonverbal communication. Sometimes you have to go beyond. Other than saying something verbal, you need to twitch a little bit, or you need to take your hand and move it where you want it to be. I just think it's good to communicate, initiate, and practice.
All right, heading over to them Crawfords, Erica and Jonathan.
Yes. I think Tammy pretty much summed it all up for the most part. I think it definitely comes with communication. You have to definitely tell your partner like what it is to make it, work for you. I feel like, Jonathan and I, we, been on this road for a very long time. And I think early on, it was just, I think it was more so just the thought, like we were just like rabbits. Like it was just a thought. We're doing it, so it was just, we're young. It's what couples do. So we're just gonna, just do it. But I felt like the older we got and the more mature we became, we began to not only verbally communicate it, but also make sure, like Tammy said, it became more of a, nonverbal thing for us. And I think too, if you're going to have that communication too, though, and then like Tammy was saying, put into practice, I think it's also a thing that you need to make sure you're good and well within yourself. Because if you are not confident in yourself about the approach that you want to have as far as a sexual relationship, then it's just, I don't think it'll just ever work. Like me, I had like so many things. And then there is some insecurities that I may have about myself that will throw Jonathan off, like, hey, babe, you need to do this. And so instead of, not making me feel bad about the situation, he tells me that you are beautiful. So you can do this. You do turn me on. You do make me feel this way. So I think it's not just, like Tammy said, is, making sure that communication, it doesn't belittle your partner. You don't make your partner feel a certain type of way. Be open, honest, and then think about your partner's feelings, because, sometimes you don't want them to feel like they're not able, to perform, or they're not, being there for you in that aspect. Because sex is it's very important. And, in a relationship, I mean, it's a part of, us showing, our love for one another. And, definitely God, made it for those who are married. And if the bedroom is, the bed, you can do whatever, as long as you're married, you can do whatever. So let's open that up and just be open with your spouse and communicate that to them, and be open about doing whatever you need to do, to get it done. And
Okay.
I'm get it done. So,
Jonathan,
get it done.
that was good.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with both what Erica and Tammy said. The main thing is, like you said, is communication. The opposite sex doesn't know how you feel or what you want if you don't tell them, if you hold everything in. And I'm key to holding a lot of things in. And I know my wife, Erica, is very sensitive. She's very emotional. So there's a lot of things that I probably do want from her sexually that I wouldn't say because of her reaction, because of how sensitive or how emotional that she is. So some stuff I just go away with it. Like, I want Erica to be more aggressive. I mean, I don't need her to rip my drawers off. You know what I'm saying? But I want her to be more aggressive. I don't want to be the aggressor all the time. There are times where I want to be watching TV, I want to play the game, and I do want Erica to come and just fall on me. I'm just saying. And because of how she is with herself, she doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to figure out how to tell her to do it without hurting her feelings. And that is one thing that I do want her to do more of. Yes, we about to be married 15 years. There's still work that can be done for us to be better in life and in our marriage. But communication is definitely the key to whatever we need. So, but that's my take.
All right, I'm heading over to Fowler Nation, and for the sake of not being repetitive around the room, we're talking about communication. You got to tell them, tell your partner, you got to be open with them. But let's be honest, people, when you talk about something as sensitive in nature as sex, feelings can get hurt so fast. So what do you say? How do you say, and this is Fowler Nation, how do you say, I am unsatisfied in this area, this is what I want to do, without hurting your partner's feelings, or without making it, your partner making it smaller than what it is to you?
Okay, so for us, so number one, I just would like to say that my husband is celibate. So it's like I'm just playing. But for us, I have always dropped hints. And sometimes my hints got a little more aggressive, and then more aggressive after that, because I could not understand, for me, how our relationship, and everybody pretty much on this panel know how we started. So we started off screwing big time. I mean, before we even had a relationship, we were screwing. So,
Okay.
And then for you to just say, whoop, yeah, my body didn't agree with that. So the things that, you know, Jonathan was saying that he would like to subconsciously suggest to Erica, I was doing those things. And, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, do this. I would literally say, do this or lick that. But, you know, my good old husband right here, you know, we view sex very differently. I always joke around, say sexually in this relationship, I'm the man and he's the woman.
Okay, Michael.
There's nothing wrong with I don't think there's anything wrong with sex. When she told me to lick, I lick. I have no problem. It's a matter of how often I lick. That's her issue. It's the quantity, not the quality.
Well, I never said quality was, I never said there was nothing wrong with the quality.
I'm just stating,
but it's the quantity that's the problem.
Yes, it's the quantity.
Babe, you be on that clean.
Babe, we had
he
5
invented
kids.
the clean.
Babe, we had 5 kids.
That was
and
'cause
you was a rabbit.
Toylise, I'm reclaiming your time. Go ahead, Michael.
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was reclaiming Toylise's time. Go ahead, Michael.
No problem. Well, I mean, yes, in the beginning we were very, very active. But as the kids came along,
was very active.
As the kids came along,
that I pushed out of my vagina.
I just pull out didn't work. So I had to do something. And if I had to lessen my time to try to work it out as best as I could, that's what I did. Now,
but that didn't work because we got teenagers and toddlers.
I'm just saying.
Very true. I'm reclaiming you guys. Go ahead, LaSonia. What is your thoughts? Because you have been in and out of 2 relationships. So how do you describe to your spouse that it's not working for you?
Well, let me begin by saying I'm single, saved, and dipped in the blood. Hallelujah. And so I am without these types of actions in my life these days. But me, and this is just me being the person that I am, I just say what has to be said. It doesn't mean that I just, you know, throw it on the table just any old kind of way and hurt feelings and all of that. But, you know, if there's something that I need and you're not doing that, instead of saying what you're not doing, I just tell you what I need. You know, this is what I need. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. Can you please incorporate? You know, I just bring it like that. Now, if you don't comply, well, now that's a different conversation. But I don't think there's any other way to address it other than to say it.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. It's kind of the same as what everyone else is saying. But for me, going into the marriage, yeah, that just wasn't happening. That type of communication wasn't something that we engaged in. We didn't talk about it because it was very sensitive. I came from a Christian community where that was completely taboo. So I felt like I was sinning or was ashamed to even say that I wanted it or to even engage with it. Like some of you guys know, like at the first part of our marriage, like I would have a whole meltdown after we did it because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to hell. Because in my head, I still couldn't transition from being told all my life that was sinful. So in growing up, I wasn't even allowed to participate in sex education. So I didn't know my body. I didn't know, I mean, obviously I knew where it went, like, come on now. But I'm saying like, I didn't know the ins and outs of myself to even know what I liked or didn't like, or even knew kind of the real anatomy of a man. And so I had to process through that. And then when I was getting married, still no one came and told me like, okay, now let's have this conversation. Because even though I wasn't privy to the conversation at school, I still didn't get it at home either. So it was just like nothing. I was just like shooting in the dark here and trying to figure out where I fit.
All right. I want to go really quickly over to JJ and Kiera. JJ and Kiera, again, are dating. JJ already let me know that they are doing things the right way. So this is not, anything that they are participating in, which is excellent. Love that about you guys. Um, in because you guys are dating and you guys have made it clear that you are in the dating phase to go to the next phase of moving it into marriage, is sex something that you guys have discussed already? Is it something that you haven't touched? What does that conversation look like between you guys right now, since you are not in a place where you are participating in it?
To be totally 100% honest, it's a conversation we have all the time. Like
Oh,
that's part of the struggle. Like I'm like we try to be as honest as we can, because I think that helps with like avoiding it. Like like so we talk about that stuff. And, this is something I struggle with. Blah 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 blah. But yeah, no, we talk about it pretty frequently. And and it's in different realms, because I mean, I've participated in, I've been in other relationships where I have had sex before marriage, and so I've read texts. I have a book I'm reading right now that's called Jesus, Sex, and Other Things That the Church Forgot to Tell You About. And it's a book that really goes into depth on the church making sex and that type of stuff taboo, where really that's what God wants. And because it's taboo, it leads to like ideas that Jennifer was talking about earlier, like the thoughts that come to your head about it being sinful because the church makes it taboo. And and the book is amazing. So if you guys get the chance to read it, it's a dope book. But I mean, yeah, we talk about it a lot. We try to like I said, stay open in that, in that category. But I mean, at the same time, we also use it as a way to understand that we're not trying to rush each other into marriage, because I'm not trying to rush into marriage just so I can have sex. And and we try to be honest about that as well. But I don't know if you got anything to add to that.
No, I could definitely, well, yes, I do, but I could totally relate to Jennifer. I grew up Pentecostal, so everything was, you can't wear this, you can't say this, you can't do this, you can't think like this, and you're just immediately condemned, and there's no grace, there's no salvation. So sex to me was like a curse word when I was younger. And my mom also was like, you can't take sex ed. So like I would be in like a totally different classroom when I could have been learning about the autonomy of sex, instead of thinking of it as a negative conversation, because it's a conversation that should be had in the church, should be had in groups. So honestly, it was traumatizing for me. But eventually, like I had to overcome that. And then with our earlier dating stage, we did a lot of Bible devotions. Our first devotion that we did together talked about like how to understand intimacy and sex at the same time. And they gave us like an acronym called HALT. So like we always ask each other these questions, like H stands for, are you hungry or are you hurting? A is, are you angry? L is, are you lonely? Or T is, are you tired? Because those are usually the 4 common reasons why people just give in to sex. So like sometimes when we feel like the urge or we feel tempted, like that's the first thing. Are you hungry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Are you angry? Like we have to ask each other like those emotions and those triggers, because we don't want to like trigger ourselves and be under pressure and feel like we are wrong or guilty. So like we just,
And I'll be lonely all the time.
I want to go over Renisha's back before I switch gears here. I want to hear from you, Renisha, from your perspective, when there is a couple, a married couple, or whoever that is struggling with this. What is a good tool or something for them to use to have this conversation? Because I think it's very easy to say communicate.
Right.
But this is kind of a hard topic to communicate about.
So let me ask you a question, Frank. I think I need you to re-ask the question, and I want to know, how blunt may I be on today's panel? How blunt may I be? If you
I
could
want
give
you
me
to.
a range, one
I,
being not blunt at all, Jennifer, five being very blunt. What may I be on today? Okay, there's a five in the room. Okay, I see a couple five in the room. Another. Thank you. And the other question I would like to know before I answer this question is, am I speaking just from a professional perspective, or am I speaking from a single 41-year-old woman, Black woman perspective on tonight? I just want to
I
know,
want
how would you like me to answer questions?
first, you have 2 minutes to answer. And second, I
Okay.
want you to
All
speak
right.
from both perspectives and curtail your response to
All right.
our audience, but 5 is okay.
Okay.
Go.
Okay. Now, question.
My question is, sex is an extremely difficult topic for people in a relationship, marriage, to discuss because of the sensitive nature surrounding sex.
Right.
So, or what are some tools that relationships can have to enter this conversation and make it as less awkward and as less uncomfortable as possible?
Frank, I'll be honest with you, sir. I believe you asked 4 questions in one. Um, and
Okay.
and it come across layered like that. And I think we need to look at it like that. First thing is, I believe your authority is in your authenticity, which means the more and more you walk in the truth and the vulnerability of who you are unashamed, is the more power you will possess in the earth and in your relationship. One
Hmm.
thing I'm hearing is really vulnerability. Oftentimes we have two hurt people trying to love one another. And because of that, I've been a psychotherapist since 2012, fully licensed, and I've been in the field of behavioral health over 18 years. With that being said, when you ask me, when I see a lot of couples, which is the second question, what comes to my desk the most, it'll probably be in marriages, especially, or just in relationships. The biggest issues are finances, is sex, and communication about the other. You look at even the kingdom of God, meaning Christians, the biggest issue that still come to play is finances and sex. And then the truth is, in our Christian world, over 50% of us is getting divorced more like never before. So when you ask, how do you approach it? Third question, sir. When you ask, how do we approach it? The first thing I will say, we have to be humble. Two, we have to be self-sacrificing and serving. Because the truth is, real sex is really about intimacy. You ask me what I really work with, the more I can get people to be vulnerable and intimate with one another, into me, see, I see into you, you see into me, their sex life always increases. Right? Because let's be blunt, two rabbits can screw. Dogs can screw. Many of us washed up watching dogs screw, deer screw, the animal kingdom screw. It's easy to get it in. If this is all about releasing and having some type of climax, anybody can do it. But if you're talking about a genuine orgasm, a place of utopia, then that takes work. And it takes vulnerability.
Okay, so I want to park there for a second because she said a word that I think we do not discuss when it comes to sex, right? So in relationships, vulnerability is usually the one thing that we struggle with. We call it a lot of different things. We say that there are communication issues. We say, I'm sensitive, or he's too sensitive, she's oversensitive, blah, 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 blah. But I think the reality is that we struggle in relationships with being vulnerable with one another. I can share this experience. I was talking on the phone with a group of my friends, having an incredible conversation. During this conversation, I was bragging on how incredible my wife was. Literally, the words from my perspective, what I was doing is I was bragging on her. I was boasting her up. I thought I was making her proud. I thought that I was showing her in a light and giving her some encouragement from a distance to help promote how amazing she was. when I ended that conversation, to my detriment, she told me something and it struck me to the core. She said, "You uncovered me in front of people." And I said, "Ooh, wait, what?" And in my mind, I'm boasting her up. I'm doing all this. So it's late. We in the bed. So it's getting ready to go down. Like when I get done with this, because I brought out all of the stuff. And then when I got done with that conversation, you uncovered me. So what I believe happened in that situation was I took an area where she had been vulnerable with me, and then I made her vulnerable to other people, right? And I think that sometimes can become an issue when you are talking about communicating in relationships. And this sex thing, for our relationship, sex was not something that we could talk about. If Jennifer said something to me at all about sex, I was offended immediately. I'm like, what? What you talking about? And the reason why is because to this day, and I'll be 35 this year, I think, 34. I'll be 34 this year. I've never had a conversation about sex with my parents, with anybody. No one has ever had the sex talk with me. So everything that I learned, that I knew about, that I talked about with sex always came from something that I saw in television and media or somewhere else. And none of it was healthy, and so that's the problem. I saw your hand, Torlise, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I forgot what I was about to say. Okay.
Well, I just want to say, Renisha, that was awesome. Real intimacy. That was a word. Amen. That was a word. But as far as sex education, I educated myself. I'm not gonna lie. I went to the library. I read books. It was free, and I could do it after school.
He watched
And my
movies
mom
too.
was not. No, I didn't. My mom was not, none the wiser. But I would rent out books about my body, a female's body, anatomy, what happens through puberty, things of that nature. And even with my kids now, I don't mind them having sex education, but I also want them to know from my perspective, that it's not taboo and it should never be taboo. Okay. Yeah. I can say I want them to wait till marriage all I want, but I didn't wait. I'm not going to say I didn't try, but I didn't wait.
And you didn't try.
I want my kids to try and things of that nature, but I want them to be educated. I want them to have everything in their arsenal, so that they can throw that. I want them to hear about HALT. Yeah. Because I don't know how it is to be single and trying to be with a mate and trying to hold out till marriage. Right. I don't know what that is. I don't know how that feels. I don't know what you go through. Look at Renee. I don't know how that feels. I gave in. You know what I mean? So there are things that you could teach me, and I'll even try to look at the book or Renisha, to help my kids, so that if that's what they decide that they want to do, at least they have the tools to be better prepared for that. But I would never want to, and like the panel said, you just got to be honest and vulnerable.
You do. Oh, and to add to that, I just want to add one thing to that. That is one of the main reasons why, when it comes down to sexuality in our home, we are very open with our children, because I don't want, like my husband just said, we don't ever want them to think that, oh, okay, I woke up after having this dream and I have an erection, da-da-da-da. There's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. I even told my daughter when she started her cycle, I said, when you look at boys now, you're probably going to feel a little differently, because your body has now stepped into womanhood. I know you're young, but you may feel differently, and that's okay. You may be aroused in other ways than just, oh, that's a schoolboy. That's one of my classmates. He's cute. You may be aroused in other ways, and that is okay. We don't ever want our children to think that there's anything wrong with them exploring, sexuality.
All right, go ahead, Erica.
Sorry about that. But yeah, I just wanted to say again, what Renisha said was a word, and JJ and Kiera, I love what they're, doing. So that's awesome for saved and, search and couple, but I just wanted to kind of say that I agree 1000% with what like Jennifer, Kiera was saying earlier, because like Jonathan, his dream is for me to be the aggressor. That's difficult when you have not had those conversations. When and people on this call will already know, when I lost my virginity, I was made to feel like I was the scum of the earth, okay? Like nobody, I did not have a shoulder to help me through the situation. I was made to feel terrible by several people. It wasn't just like one person, it was multiple people who made me feel terrible about the situation. So again, that makes sex feel like it's such a negative thing. Like Renisha said, we was rabbits. We was doing it all the time. But was I actually doing it to please him? No, it was something I was doing, just to be doing it because I'm doing it. But I had no idea what I was doing, how I was doing, the way I should be doing it, the way I did not know, never had a conversation. No, I don't even take me as a grown woman to go and buy underwear. So it's a you know what I mean? I'm open and honest about it, but it's just something that I never had the actual conversation or was made to, like, you're a woman, you are married now. This is how you're supposed to, make, your husband feel. I don't want to be unrealistic. I want to be real in my assessment. I want to make sure that I am pleasing him the best way possible, but I'm not just going to do it just because I'm watching something on TV or something like that. No, I want to make sure that I'm doing it right, but still be confident and feel good within myself. And early on, and still even now, those thoughts always come to my mind about how I was made to feel about sex. So, and that does have an issue, and it causes an issue. It's something I'm definitely willing to work on, you know what I mean? Definitely to please, my husband. And you're trying to act like I'm just, I ain't never been an aggressor. I aggress sometimes, but still, I feel like I wanted to, make that a point that does have an effect, especially on women, when you are into, sexual relationships. So that was a great point that all of them brought up. And I just wanted to kind of double back on it.
Okay, I'm coming to you, Renisha, but before that, I just wanted to go to the comments real quick. Cassandra Greer Walton said, it's difficult when you've tried and got rejected and it make you not want to be the aggressor again. I do believe that that's something that is true, and we have to talk about that, because when nobody wants to feel rejection, right? And when you get rejected on a subject that's already a sensitive area, that's like what's the saying, pouring salt on the wound. And it's really, really, really hard to recover from something like that. So you have to be careful, and the conversations have to be so fluid. It's so crazy to me thinking about how my wife and I discuss and interact with sex now versus when we first got married. Because when I tell you, full on struggle, like straight up, I can't believe we just had sex, we're going to hell. Wait, what? We signed the papers though. We went down the aisle, we waited. What are we talking about here? And for me, even though she didn't tell me no, that was a form of rejection. So now I had to go back within myself and say, okay, that wasn't about me. That was something that happened in her childhood that we now have to address. Let's address that together. This is a safe place for you to be vulnerable in, and let me be vulnerable about how I felt about that, and let's move on together. And I think that is how you get to that place. Go ahead, Renisha.
Okay, I just want to say a couple things. Dem Crawfords, Erica, thank you so much for sharing that and being vulnerable enough to share that. Because, and it's funny because I definitely we're family, but I've always seen you are so sexy to me. So to hear that, it's like, what, when you come across so sexy? And in our family, a lot of us dance and we like make routines and stuff. So to hear that, it's like, whoa, which tells me that we have to watch ourselves from the shame factor. If you ever want to look it up, family, you guys can look it up. Those who are watching, the shame factor. One thing about it is anywhere you have been controlled, you have been shamed. And oftentimes, I'm going to say this tongue in cheek, so please be mature to hear this, audience. Oftentimes, the church world has allowed a spirit of shame to come into sexuality and to sex in our lives as a way of trying to control us from having premarital sex in a sense of trying to have us not do it without God. When the truth is, God is the orchestrator of all things. Everything that good and perfect, scripture says, comes from above. If you've had some good sex, guess what? It's good for it and it's perfect and it comes from above. The Bible says that the marriage bed is undefiled, right? With that being said, and when you are in a sexual relationship with your covenant partner, there is no broken rules there. So when the son sets free, that man is free indeed. So we have to be able to get to a place where we remove shame. But what we have to do is get layers of healing. So when you ask about how can we start expressing ourselves more, is healing. Healing, healing, healing. Healing happens. Just like shame happens, healing happens. I know a lot of us who have maybe have been sexually abused can struggle with shame too. If you've been raped, you can struggle with shame too. Third thing I want to say is I heard Cassandra's question about rejection. What I want to pose to people who are watching is women, we got to be careful because oftentimes when we initiate something and if a man rejects us, we feel rejected and we have the ability to go hide and shut down. I'm bringing that out for a reason because how often do we reject men? How often do we say my stomach hurting? Oh, baby, I'm not feeling good. And then we got to know what rejection really is. Is he rejecting you? Is he saying, I don't want you? Or is he saying, I'm tired too? Is he saying, I'm sleepy? Is he saying, babe, you want me to perform out here in these streets and I can't. I can't right now. If he really rejecting you, if he just in his feelings, is something wrong with him? And have you rejected him too? Number 3, either in that or 4, if try it again. You know, we have to be able to say, okay, if we're in this thing for life, it got to be together for life. It got to be together. And oftentimes, and I'm going to say this before I mute myself, oftentimes, what I find with my couples that I deal with a lot, and you may have a marriage and family certificate, is the fact that we don't know how to please ourselves. Yep, I said it. We don't know what's pleasing to us. We don't. So it's hard for you to tell somebody what's pleasing to you when you don't recognize it. But that's another story. I'm gonna mute
Truth
myself.
story. Go ahead, Toylise and then Tammy.
Okay, I just wanted to respond to the comment as well because when obviously we've discovered in this conversation that I am the aggressor in this relationship sexually. But when my husband rejects me, it makes me irritated because it's not the fact that I'm being rejected, but it's how he rejects me. I mean, he just have a girl bad spirit. And I'm like, don't do that when I'm trying to ride, when I'm trying to jump on or I'm trying to get on. And that is, I don't mind you saying I'm tired or I'm sleepy or I'm on this, but when you're always saying that, that's where I have a problem. And see, my husband has a sleeping ministry. And so, when it's time, and then, he'll say, well, let me go to sleep and let me do this and do that. But then want to come trying to preheat this oven at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, my guy, I'm asleep. So you can't come, not unless you real fantastic with it. And there have been times where he was real creative with it. But for the most part, don't come interrupting me while I'm asleep. Because now I have a sleep ministry and now you up and you at attention, but that, I don't know. I don't know.
But here's the compromise.
There is no compromise.
There is a compromise and we have to come to a compromise because
the compromise is satisfy the horny. That's the compromise. I'm horny, you satisfied. That's the compromise.
Toylise, reclaiming your time. Go ahead, Michael.
So I have said, okay, I understand that the frequency may not be there. I said, I am tired. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm almost 40. My drive is not the way that it used to be when I was in my 30s and my late 20s and my early 20s. It's just not there. I will do what I have to do But Monday.
You see that? Do what I have to do.
Wait. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
But what I have offered is to say, okay, babe, let's compromise. Let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
He won't
let's try to
schedule
plan it.
sex.
But she doesn't want that. So since we have, now that's my question to the panel.
What?
Have y'all ever gotten to a point where y'all had to plan it, and is that okay?
No, it's not.
Hold on, Michael. Go ahead, Tammy, and then we will answer that, Michael.
Okay, going to Casey's comment. I think oftentimes when guys ask us to be the aggressor, they really don't mean us be the aggressor, but they want us to be the initiator. Because during my marriage, there was a time that my husband told me he wanted me to be the aggressor, but that's not what he wanted. A man don't want to be the female in the bed. They just want you to initiate the sex. So when you initiate in the intimacy, it's not jumping on top of him. And that's what I was doing. I found myself being over aggressive and overbearing by jumping on top of him, opposed to nibbling on his ear or nibbling on his neck or doing the things that I know arouse him to initiate the sex. So I think oftentimes when men reject us for being aggressive, it's because we're too overpowering. They still want to be the man. They still want to be in charge. They just want us to initiate it a little more and come to them, opposed to them always coming to us.
That is 1000% accurate, coming from a man and a man's perspective. And I think one area that men struggle with is saying that. I think men, I don't know if it's an ego issue or what kind of issue it is, but men don't know how to say, I want you to initiate sex more because I too want to feel wanted. I too want to feel like you are attracted to me. I too want to feel like I am a prize just as much as you are. And I think as men, it took me a long time to get to a place where I was able to say that to my wife without feeling like I was going to be judged or feeling like she was going to say, oh my gosh, you just like a female, because we do hear that, anytime we talk about anything emotionally or relationally charged or something expressive about us, we hear it automatically goes to, why are you being the female? Why are you this is supposed to be my job, not yours. Why are you doing that? So then we in turn create this unsafe space in our relationship for that communication to happen. Going over to LaSonia. LaSonia, I would love for you to answer the question that Michael asked. We are going around and we're going to answer the question. Have you ever had to schedule sex? And if you have, or if you have not, is it okay? Is it not okay? What are your thoughts? 30 seconds, rapid fire, time starts now.
Well, I also want to respond to what you said too, Frank. But
okay,
to answer Michael's question, I think sometimes it's necessary. When you're in a relationship and you've started a family and there's 27 kids running around, you can't be spontaneous. When there's a 2-year-old standing over your bed talking about, I want some tater chips. You can't do that. Sometimes it does have to be scheduled and organized. However, I think it is still important to also have some spontaneity going on. I think it is still important to, surprise your spouse, that tap on the shoulder at 3:30 in the morning when you was in the middle of that dream, and it's a third leg in the bed. Sometimes that has to happen. But when you have a family and you're working full-time jobs and life is busy, sometimes you do have to, say Monday, Wednesday, and every other Friday at 7:00, this is what's going down.
Okay, go ahead, Tammy.
LaSonia, this is the first time I'm going to disagree with you. Planned sex is the worst sex because it put too much pressure on each other. When you have it planned, okay, I have to be here at this time. I have to perform. I have to be done at this time. It don't work. And believe me, I got 6 kids. You do not have to plan because it works, okay? You can get it in anytime like that. Don't have them kids go downstairs and keep it moving. But planned sex has to be the worst sex because you can't
Well,
fully
when
give
I say
yourself.
planned though, but when I say planned, I ain't talking about it got to be on the calendar, right? But
Mhm.
obviously, when all of the kids are up and running around the house, you can't.
That's the
You know,
best sex. That's the best sex when the kids is
But
up and running
some
around because you being sneaky about it. So therefore you get
right,
to slide
and
it
that
on in.
works.
You be quiet. You know, maybe I got too many kids. That's the problem right there where I got so many kids. But I think that's the best sex. When you go to plan it, it's just too much pressure. What if
And
I'm not
I
in the mood? What if
agree.
I'm not feeling okay?
I agree, but that doesn't always work in every situation. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
doesn't always work in every situation. Been caught by the
I've
kids.
been caught too.
You
Son
know,
told me his whole
it ain't
stomach hurt.
cool. Right. It
It
ain't
ain't.
cool. My son was ready to go get the knife because he thought we was up in there fighting. It was terrible. You know, but yeah, I mean, and like I said, when I say scheduled, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, on the schedule at 7 o'clock on Thursday
But that's
afternoon
what
type stuff.
Fowler is talking about. Fowler is talking about, you know what, Toy Lease? Monday and Friday at 6 p.m. we can get it in. That ain't gonna work, Fowler. Don't try.
Okay, reclaiming your time. Go ahead, Dem Crawfords. What are your thoughts? Is it okay to schedule it? Is it not okay? What are your thoughts? 30 seconds.
I mean, I don't know. It just, I mean, it's, to me, it's cool either way. I mean, it just kind of depends on the couple. But again, it has to be that something the couple agree with. It can't be one-sided. So I don't know if it'll work for the Fowler Nation, you know, because if it's not going to work for both, it need to work for both. Or you can be in a situation where Erjan come trying to open your door, and then he sit up there and say, Mama and Daddy, y'all need to fix y'all door. It's broke. I can't get in. No, you weren't supposed to come in, brother. So I think it just depends on the couple. That's me.
Jonathan?
Took my comment.
Go ahead.
She took my comment. She knew I was coming with that. No, I don't like the planned sex because a planned sex might not work out as planned. We may plan to do something at 9 o'clock on Friday. Depending on how my day went, I might not be up to at 9 o'clock on Friday. So now that's going to upset one of us because we planned something and it didn't work out as planned. So we kind of unplanned. I'm gonna say it that way because we know our boys stay up late playing the game. So we know Erjan got a bedtime at 10. So I tell Erica, as soon as Erjan go to sleep, that's when it's about to go down because we know he getting into bed at 10. I make him come in there and say goodnight. That way he ain't got to come back in there because he's good for popping up when I'm popping up. Erjan is good for that. So that's how we playing. I love playing Had the Pastrami or being Michael Jackson Beat It. But when Erjan come popping in there, like he said, something wrong with y'all door. So it's hard to plan. So we try to unplan. I'm just saying that's the only way. That's how it works.
All right, go ahead, Jennifer. What are your thoughts on planning it?
I mean, I agree with the Crawfords. Like, I feel like it depends on the couple. But because of the hustle and bustle of everyday life, sometimes you do have to plan, but I don't think it should be a scheduled thing. Like how Michael was saying, every Wednesday and Friday, that doesn't really work. Like sometimes if it's been a long time and you guys can't connect, sure, we can plan something next Wednesday night. The kids got to be somewhere else because we need to connect. But I also think that it's important for spontaneity in the relationship. Like you need to surprise your man, you need to surprise your woman of having that intimate moment or catching them off guard or doing something that maybe they told you that they fantasized about in order to keep that romance alive.
Agreed. Renisha, 30 seconds. Planned sex. Is it okay? Is it not? You're muted. 30 seconds.
I think it's absolutely okay. I think it's absolutely okay. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
You can't hear me.
Yes, we can. Now we cannot.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think it's absolutely okay. With the couples I've been able to meet, sometimes when it comes to reconnection, we call that when it comes to reconnection and intimacy, Planning sex is as important as planning any other meeting. You have a financial meeting, you have a planning meeting, you have a meeting to go do this, a meeting to go do that. Sometimes it's a meeting of the minds, even sexually, a meeting of the bodies. How do you think affairs happen in family? Affairs happen because it's a plan. And guess what? A real affair is a plan to go down and to go down majorly. With that being said, I think that we need to reframe our mindset about what sex is and make it about the connection. Plan intimacy. We can plan just having some intimate time together because we're having that planned intimacy. You can start to plan to actually have sexual intimacy as well. So I would like to just expand that mindset about that connection, that it's about planning that intimate connection. And sometimes it don't always have to be intercourse. It could be a straight up make out session. It can be oral sex alone. It can just be something to bond you beyond the regular realm, because physical intimacy is important in a marriage. It is the glue. Better believe that. It's the glue. It's glue.
All right, Fowler Nation.
I didn't even have my hand.
Plan sex, bye. Because what happens is in Fowler Nation, when sex is planned, Mama Fowler ends up with a whole bunch of rain checks. So therefore, the plan sex, now I got a rain check.
It was never.
So
really
therefore, bye.
Thank you. Reclaiming your time. JJ and Kiera, playing sex.
Michael didn't speak.
I couldn't.
Okay. 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
See?
Okay. So
Rain check.
I believe in spontaneity. I have, and my wife believes in that too. But I also do believe in it for our family, for just my sanity. Yes, I feel like at least planning it would help her or help us be better, because no, my mind, the sex is not on my mind.
Ever.
First thing. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Ever.
When I wake up in the morning, as soon as I get off of work, I'm thinking about how to cool down, how to chill out,
thinking about how to
make
come.
to eat. And after I cook dinner, get the kids to bed, and then what? I gotta go to work tomorrow. I gotta be at work at 8, so I can't stay up till like 12 or whatever. But I can't. But what I'm saying is that if we could at least try to at least make that time.
We did try, and I ended up with rain checks.
Okay, but that was in the past, and let's keep moving forward, because we have been. I think I've been on a good roll here in a couple of weeks and months. So.
Okay, I'm reclaiming that because we don't need to hear those details. JJ and Kiera, planning.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, man, I can't say that I get down with that because of the moves, man. Yeah, it might have to be pills involved if we doing plan stuff. But I mean, yeah, I was just telling her, like, right now, like, honeymoon every day, probably 3 times a day. I'm just saying, like, cash in, right? Cash in, money in the bank. I'm cashing in.
Kiera.
I have no comment.
Okay. One thing I wanted to say, that it for me, that the planning of sex is too much pressure, and it usually don't work out the way you want it to when you plan it, because of the pressure of I have to perform, and because I planned this, there's an expectation on the plan, and if you don't meet that expectation, now you're just like, I waited for this, So for me, and I'm not saying it's wrong, I believe if it works for your unit, it's absolutely okay. For me, the pressure that the announcement makes, it gives me this anxiety, and then anxiety takes over my mind, and then that takes over my performance, and then it's all bad for everybody. So the planning doesn't work for me. Go ahead, LaSonia.
I don't know what kind of planning you people are doing. Like, honestly, like, you guys are really making this out like, you know, you made an appointment. Like, that's not what planning is or has to be. Planning is, Tammy, all the kids about to be at mama house. Oh, it's on. You just planned. Did you not just plan? When you planned your time to, or when you sent all the kids, or, you know, or husband comes home from work and the lights are dim and you in some stilettos and a little get up, is that not a plan? I mean, planning
Well,
doesn't
in that
have
sense,
to be making
yes.
an appointment. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I guess in my mind, I'm thinking appointment then, because hey, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this is our time slot. For me, it just doesn't work. But I agree with you. And
Yeah,
and
I might not have drank enough water Wednesday.
and there are
But when it
certainly
comes to
sometimes.
like, go ahead, Mills.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Like when planning, like the example you gave, going over mother's house, grandmother's house, that don't even need to be planned or discussed because you already know what's going down, right? So
Right.
when I think about planning, I'm thinking about, we're talking about this, and because our schedules are so hectic, we're going to come up with a time and date. You know, that's what I think about when I'm talking about planned sex.
Yeah, and see, for me,
When people
that
plan sex,
planning.
I think it's a lot of pressure too. To me, Valentine's Day is not that special to me when I already know I'm getting a room. I already know we got the room for 24 hours, so we gonna have sex. Like, I like the spontaneity of it all. I'm just sitting back watching a movie. I want you to come lick on the nipple or the neck or something, and let's get it going like that, opposed to planning, because planning is a lot of pressure. And to me, my best orgasms is unplanned. That's just me personally.
But I hear what you're saying, but because when you say you need that time, that intimacy, you being spontaneous, it can allow for a week to go by and you not do nothing because you're so caught up with everything else. You're with just life, you know. So if I can make a plan to go on a date, if I can make a date to say, listen, we're gonna go out to date. This is our dinner time, and my wife and I did that all the time. What's so different with saying, you know what? So that we don't get to that point where you say, oh, it's been a week, oh, it's been 2 weeks, and it's gone a week before with no signals from either one of us, because it's just like that.
But that doesn't happen for women at almost the age of 40, Fowler.
Well, huh?
You got to know that women's sexual peaks, it started going up, their sexual desire at 38, 40. It started to increase.
I get that. I understand that. However, at the end of the day, why is it so hard to say, you know what? Saturday. Or
so what if Twilise came to you and said, Fowler, 3 days out the week, I want to come home and I want you to pull your private out because I want to get it on, whether it's oral or whatever. Are you down for that? Because that's what Twilise wants.
I would be down for that.
Twilise.
Well, he's down for that. I'm reclaiming. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just gonna agree with what LaSonia was talking about the level and elaborate planning. Like, I don't think it always has to be this elaborate thing, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be a two-way planning situation. Like, I can just plan, like, I'm gonna give him some, you know, this evening or tomorrow, and so I'm gonna make plans for the kids to be away, or I'm gonna dress up like, and then this is gonna happen. And I think that sometimes takes away the pressure of us mutually coming together. It's tomorrow at 7, but it is, I know that I have to prepare myself because I'm going to do this thing. That's still a level of planning, but on the other person's end, it still provides that spontaneity that Tammy is talking about.
This has been phenomenal conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining in. You guys blew these comments up. viewers, all of those things was said. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If this was your first time joining our page, please, again, do us a favor, like, comment, and subscribe to our page here on Facebook. You can also find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at Couples in Conversations. You can find our past videos using the hashtag Get In on the Conversation. We are also on every podcast outlet there is. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMusic, everywhere where you can find this podcast, you can find our episodes. Until next time, remember that communication is everything. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time with Couples in Conversations.